I've made a couple of little collages here for you. Don't accuse me of being the Zodiac killer though, because he made collages. Look at these three guys, okay? Now I've showed you this picture before. It says here, these are police drawings of one suspect in the Benelak killing, left, this guy, and two suspects in the Hikari murder case, these two. Now you tell me how it is that three people can get accused of a murder that they think might have been the Zodiac, unless there were possibly three Zodiac suspects. And I want you to look close at these faces and compare them to these. Can you see the resemblance? These three and these three. This guy almost looks exactly like him, only with a beard. And look at those eyes. And look at this guy's eyes. If those aren't the eyes of a murderer, you tell me what they are. Here are some pictures from the FBI files of Frank Morris. There's two things I want you to get out of these pictures. Number one is that picture right there. Now if I straighten it up a little bit and you don't look at this, the fact that it's kind of crooked, Frank has drawn this silhouette on the Mary Pilker Christmas card and on this Brazil photo. You can't see it on here, you got to go to the internet, but the silhouette is right there. If you look at that on the internet and you look at this just an incredible caricature type likeness, and it's on more than two of his cards, I believe. You'll have to go to the internet and find them. I'm going to see if I can't get some of them for you and get them on here, but we only have a limited amount of time for these videos. Now, another thing I want you to get out of this is this picture. Look at the hands and look at the stance. Okay? Now here's another collage for you. Again, I'm not the Zodiac killer. I don't send collages to the police. Look at that stance. Look at those hands. And look at this stance. And look at those hands. Can you see the resemblance? I saw him dressed in civilian clothes, not those clothes, but civilian clothes, and then he went in another room and he put this uniform on and he told me to come out from behind the door and look, and he had this uniform on, and I would never forget that stance and how they resemble, because I knew the guy. Look closely and look closely. Can you get it? Look at the hands. Look at the stance. That's your Zodiac killer right there, right out of the FBI files, Frank Lee Morris. I have here the FBI files on Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers after the escape from Alcatraz. I want you to see this. John William Anglin, subject extremely dangerous. Clarence Anglin, subject extremely dangerous. And Frankie Lee Morris, extremely dangerous. Now those statements will be throughout these files, but here's what I want to show you. In reference to Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers, FBI file, escaped federal prisoners. Back then the FBI didn't want to make any comments, is what it's saying here, because of the search went on for the prisoners, escaped prisoners, etc., etc. But someone was telling him that anything that they knew in the Bay Area that was relative to the escape should be made available to the press, since, after all, the subjects might be on the mainland endangering citizens and the public has a right to know. Okay, now I just saw a video last night on YouTube about one of the guards who actually found that raincoat boat of these guys up in Raccoon Strait on a sandbar, and he said it was full of blood. Okay, now I've told you before that that body that floated up in the bay was someone that Frank Morris killed and took his clothes and his money and probably his car, and that's how they escaped. I guess they put his body in the boat, and that's where he bled out at. And here is Angel Island. Now remember, I told you before, these guys, when they escaped from Alcatraz, they told everybody they were going to Angel Island, so that's what the rumor would be, and it would get back to the warden after they escaped, and that everybody would be there looking for them. But they were really planning on going here to Treasure Island. But in fact, the tide took them out here somewhere between here and here. And that's where I think they met the guy that they killed and dumped in the bay. And I think they put his body in the raincoat raft that they made, let some of the air out of it, stuck it in the back of the guy's car with him in it, bleeding to death. And they drove around here in his car and went out here to the bay, and they pumped their raft back up, and they left the raft there on a sandbar, and they dumped the guy's body in the water. Now I think they did this over probably at least whatever time period it took for the tide to go back out. That way the guy's body would get picked up by the tide and would be taken out to sea, and someone might see it on the way out underneath the bridge, and that's exactly what happened. Frank loved blood anyway. Now, quickly, here's the FBI wanted poster on Clarence Anglin. Anglin has been convicted of bank robbery and possession of firearms when last arrested. Now, do you think he was playing with a toy gun? These were real firearms. He has a record of escapes. Consider extremely dangerous. And by the way, I read on the internet an article that you can go find. I think I typed in the Anglin brothers bank robbery in Columbia. I believe it's Columbia, Georgia. I may have the states wrong, but they did that bank robbery very close to a state line so that they could get across the straight state line to escape and create confusion. And the part that I wanted to tell you about, which is more important than exactly where it was at, was the fact that someone who was involved in the whole thing at the bank made the statement that the so-called toy gun that these guys were supposed to have used to rob the bank was never produced at the trial. Okay? So the only people that are claiming that it was a toy gun was John and Clarence Anglin. It was never presented at trial in the court, so we don't know if it was a toy gun or not. The official from the bank said that he was certain that it was a real gun and that they were lying about it. Now, I'm sure these guys would tell you the truth about something like that, right? Frank Lee Morris. He's been convicted of burglary, larceny of an automobile, grand larceny, possession of narcotics, bank burglary, armed robbery, and escape. Consider extremely dangerous. Okay? Again, you're going to see that throughout the FBI files. They knew these guys were potential murderers. John William Anglin. Bank robbery. It says here he was in possession of firearms when last arrested. He has a previous record of escape. Consider extremely dangerous. Okay? These guys have been arrested with firearms before, not toy guns, okay? These are not the kind of people you want to meet in a dark alley when you're by yourself. Subjects have a record for bank robberies and escapes and must be considered dangerous. Okay, this is about Frank Lee Morris. His name is not on this page. It was on the previous page. He was serving a 14-year sentence for bank burglary. His vocational training was listed as shoe repair shop, and I've told you about him gluing a cross to a rock on Donna Lass's grave. Now, shoe repair, this guy knew a lot about glue. He knew enough to glue together raincoats and make a raft that got him off of Alcatraz Island along with his friends. He worked in the paint shop and in the electrical shop. That's how he had access probably to that power cord that they stole, which, by the way, they did not use it to do any body surfing. It was used to climb down the wall, or the rock face is what he told me, at Alcatraz. And he even explained to me how they did it in a U shape, and then that way they could pull the cable back down off of the island and take it with them. And I even saw John Anglin walking out of the house with that thing wrapped around his body, and I asked Frank where he was going, and they said they were going to go somewhere where they were going to need that to do some climbing. Who knows who they were going to try to kill that day. And it says here that Frank was raised through foster homes in his juvenile years. And it says down here, extremely dangerous.